This is Angie Sanclemente Valencia. Some people knew her as a former beauty queen and lingerie model. Others knew her as the White Powder Queen. How does a model become a narco queenpin? What motivated Valencia to take this dark path? And was she ever arrested? Let's explore the case of the model who became a dangerous narco queen. It was December 13, 2009, and a 21-year-old model nicknamed Ariel was at the Ezeiza International Airport in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She was on her way to the UK, but she never made it to the airplane that day. You see, when she arrived at the security check, her bag turned up something strange. Authorities found 55 kilograms or 121 pounds of white powder inside. It wasn't even concealed. When authorities asked her to explain herself, she said she was told no one would check her bags, so someone had instructed her to carry this bag. The officers knew as much. They also realized that if Ariel's employer had told her no one would check, this meant that there were airport staff members who were in cahoots with the employer. Ariel was one of many models passing through the airport with bags of coke. As it turns out, she was one of a whole army of young models, an army that their employer would dub unsuspicious, beautiful angels. That day, Ariel was interrogated by Argentinian law enforcement. Within a few hours, they got the names of 3 other models, as well as their boss, ex-model Angie Sanclemente Valencia. This was the first time Valencia's name was officially linked to a cartel, but she'd been in the business for many years. Angie Sanclemente Valencia was born on May 25, 1979 in Barranquilla, Colombia. Not much is known about the first years of her life, but by the time she was a teenager, she had joined the world of modeling. In 2000, she won a Colombian national qualifying competition for the Reinado Internacional del Café, the International Queen of Coffee beauty pageant. However, just 2 days later, she was dethroned after it was discovered that she was married. It's hilarious how a woman's marital status influences this sort of prize, but that's a debate for another time. Anyway, the prize was then awarded to a woman named Ximena Andrea Garcia Buitrago, and Angie was left bitterly disappointed. She went on to work as a lingerie model for several years, attracting increasingly lucrative contracts and a small group of fans along the way. However, she led a shocking double life that most people in her life knew nothing about. Angie led one of the most powerful drug syndicates in Colombia. It all began with Angie's relationship with a man named The Monster. Well, that wasn't his name, of course, but his narco baron nickname in Mexico. The Monster was a powerful narco lord and a violent man with a quick temper. Angie was not the type to sit in silence and accept whatever was being done to her. So after things got sour between her and the Monster, she decided to call it quits. But she did much more than that. Indeed, Angie was so determined to get back at the Monster that she started an entire rival empire, a cartel that would challenge him and make money off the same narcotics and routes. So much for burly cartel men who think women are just innocent objects of desire or helpless victims. Not only did Angie use her modeling life as a veil for what she really did, but she also used her ties to the modeling world to recruit employees. Angie was not wrong in thinking few officers would suspect young models when traveling with big suitcases through international airports. Angie recruited very young women who wanted to make the big bucks. Her tasks would pay much more than any modeling contract, around $5,000 for one single trip, so her offer was pretty hard to refuse. The job sounded simple enough. Take a bag full of white powder and ship it from Argentina to England via Cancun, Mexico. Angie was far from the first queenpin to use young women for this type of mission. Remember the notorious Grela Blanco? For those of you who don't know her name, Griselda was one of the bloodiest narco queens in history. Born in Colombia, Griselda, also known as the Black Widow, was at the epicenter of the cocaine cowboy wars in Florida. In 1980, Miami had 573 homicides. In the following year, 621. For the first time ever, officers were being brought down in broad daylight and left on the street.
The disregard for human life there at the scene was something that we had never seen or heard of here in South Florida.
Miami was an excellent point for white powder entrance to the United States, and Grela Blanco was one of the big bosses overseeing trafficking for the Colombian cartels at the time. She would take a person's life just for looking at her the wrong way, and she would take the lives of all 3 of her husbands. The first one used some of her money for personal gain. The second one, well, she suspected him of cheating. And the third one, same reason. Except this time, Griselda also took the lives of 8 strippers who she thought were sleeping with her husband. Griselda Blanco was responsible for up to 200 deaths, and those are just the lives that she took with her own hands. But all the while, Griselda kept an appearance that deterred the authorities. She was 5 feet tall and a mother of 4. Who would suspect this person of running a narco gang? Griselda also owned a special line of lingerie. This was an excellent money laundering scheme, a business front, and a way to smuggle efficiently across borders. You see, Griselda's lingerie was made with small secret sewings that could carry bags of white powder.
They were creating garments. These garments would allow for the drugs to be more smoothed around the body. It would just look like a woman's natural figure.
Griselda worked with fellow Colombian women, whom she employed as her mules. She even trained them to flirt with the officers and distract them from whatever suspicions they might have.
She encouraged the women to dress very attractively, to be flirtatious with customs agents and immigration agents.
Of course, you might think today this would attract all the more attention, but 4 decades ago, authorities weren't exactly trained to suspect young women too.
No one's going to suspect that a young woman who's very nicely dressed is going to be wearing a bra padded with cocaine.
Griselda's mules only carried around 2 pounds of coke on them. There was nothing inside their suitcases. Angie's models, on the other hand, were much braver, or perhaps the better word is reckless. Remember, Ariel was caught with over 100 pounds. That was Angie's go-to plan. It's incredible that so many years later, the plan actually worked before it fell apart in 2009. After authorities arrested Ariel and got Angie Valencia's name, they issued an arrest warrant for her. But at this point, Angie was a queenpin, which meant she had ears everywhere. She found out that the walls were closing in on her, so she decided to flee her Argentina address and move into a hotel with her beloved Pomeranian. Interpol then issued an international arrest notice. In May 2010, Angie Valencia was arrested at a Buenos Aires hostel while attempting to change her appearance by dyeing her hair blonde. She had also registered under a fake name. On May 27, 2010, Angie was jailed at the Federal Detention Center for Women, Unit 31, in the city of Ezeiza. But by October, she was moved to another facility after she was subject to several violent incidents. It's unclear if Angie fell victim repeatedly due to her previous cartel ties or because of new enemies she had made within the prison walls. She spent 3 years in prison, half of her original sentence. On September 27, 2013, she was released, but banned from ever returning to Argentina. People have commented that 3 years is a very short time to serve for running a narco chain that's responsible for anything from smuggling to taking innocent lives. While Angie might not have taken lives herself, she was at the top of this violent group. It's likely she accepted a generous plea deal, or she cooperated with authorities to have more people arrested. If this is the case, then Angie must never contact her former cartel pals again. They will see her as a traitor, and we all know what happens to traitors in cartels. In a funny twist, in 2013, she appeared on Colombian television, speaking about her release and her 2000 Queen of Coffee prize. It's often the subject of debate whether an ex-convict should use their past crimes to gain fame or money. Sometimes they go on television to speak about their past and raise awareness about the dangers of joining a cartel.
Your husbands were involved in the cartel.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
I mean, at the time, you're living that life and you're blinded by pretty much everything.
When Olivia and Mia Flores spoke to NBC New York, they wore disguises, afraid they would face retribution in Mexico for speaking against their husband's cartel. But they wanted the world to know, working for a cartel is not all glitz and glamour. That's just the promise.
We need security because we are being hunted by the Mexican cartel.
Twin brothers Pedro and Margarito Flores used to work for El Chapo and his notorious Sinaloa cartel. But after their arrest, they became informants for the DEA, helping bring down several more Sinaloa members. This did not sit well with the Sinaloa cartel. Needless to say, if any of the brothers or their wives returned to Mexico, they would most likely lose their lives. Now, Mia and Olivia are speaking out against the fake promises of cartels and how their risks far outweigh the rewards.
You were well aware that your husbands were involved in the cartel.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
I mean, at the time, you're living that life and you're blinded by pretty much everything.
What you see on TV, when you see the Kardashians, that's the type of lifestyle that we lived. You have so many people now today on social media that glamorizes that lifestyle, and I think that they don't realize what this life is about. It's about destruction. It's about violence. People are getting killed. People are being tortured.
So even if you're a so-called innocent wife, not partaking in the actual violence, by living the lavish lifestyle off of your cartel husband's dirty money, you're condoning all of that.
Do you feel badly that your husbands were involved in this and you knew all about it?
Yes. I mean, I wish I could sit here and take it back, but I mean, this is a part of who we are.
Mia and Olivia wrote a book, Cartel Wives, going into further detail about all the atrocities the Sinaloa cartel committed. They have also confessed to helping their husbands launder money at times and to seeing cash stashed inside their homes. Of course, that's the reality of being around cartel lords. It's a dangerous lifestyle filled with immoral decisions and constant paranoia. On the other hand, there are those who have committed far worse crimes and yet use the screen to get rich and famous without an ounce of regret.
Hola, buenas noches. Muchas gracias por todas las personas que me han tenido interés en mi página, la oficial.
This is Sandra Avila Beltran, otherwise known as the Queen of the Pacific.
Tu nombre, por favor.
Sandra Avila Beltrán.
¿De dónde es originaria?
Tijuana, Baja California.
In 2002, her son was snatched. When she paid a $5 million ransom to get him back, the DEA started investigating her. Then there was the incident that earned her the famous nickname. In 2001, the United States seized a tuna fishing boat transporting 9 tons of white powder. Indeed, this had been Sandra's main smuggling mode for years, and this is what earned Sandra her nickname, the Queen of the Pacific. In the early 2000s, Sandra Avila was on Mexico's most wanted list, but she continued to elude authorities for 5 more years. Finally, in 2007, she was arrested. Before being interrogated on camera, she asked an officer to give her a few minutes to do her hair and put on her makeup. When the officer asked her what business she was in, she said, clothing. Even when she was convicted and sent to prison for life, she remained adamant that she shouldn't be there. For much of the next decade, she lived behind bars, but in style. While other prisoners had visits in a common room, Avila's guests were escorted to her cell, where her 3 maids served food, alcohol, and cigarettes. Jose Gerardo Meja, the first journalist to interview her in prison, described Avila as a prisoner in 4-inch heels, adorned with jewels, custom clothing, and obsequious guards who acted with the airs of a low-ranking diplomat announcing the arrival of the ambassador. When she was denied restaurant-made food, Sandra claimed her basic rights were being violated. She never seemed to own up to her crimes or accept a more modest life. In 2012, Sandra was extradited to the U.S. and charged with being a key asset in the white powder trade. She pleaded guilty and got a 70-month sentence. Sandra ended up spending 2 years in solitary confinement for bad behavior. In short, she continued to behave like an entitled princess. Solitary confinement was a reminder that money doesn't get you anything. She was released in 2015, after which she took to TikTok. Yes, she is now trying to be a TikTok star by talking about her past cartel affairs. Not only does she not speak out against cartels, but she seems quite proud of her achievements. The tons of white powder smuggled, the near-death experiences, and things too gruesome to mention here. When it comes to Angie Sanclemente Valencia, it's unclear what she uses the media for and if she's still a prominent figure in Colombia. It's likely she is now living a low-key life to avoid prison time, and she has definitely cut ties with her old cartel and with Argentina. Whatever her situation is now, Angie has left an interesting legacy behind, one which inspired the TV series La Diosa Coronada, starring the Colombian model and actress Carolina Guerra as the character of Raquel Santamaria Cruz. Hey, thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on Angie Sanclemente Valencia? Do you know other famous female narcos? Let me know in a comment. And before you go, Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. See you next time.